It has been 5 years since a deadly crackdown by Myanmar's army sent hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims fleeing across the border into Bangladesh. But till today, no solution is in sight. Fresh off his visit from Cox's Bazar, now home to over 1 million of Rohingya refugees, Paul McPhun from Doctors Without Borders shares the severity of the crisis.
A lot of this comes down to the policies and interests of all of the countries individually. To start with, I would say one key problem is, this has been going on for 5 years, that Bangladesh has been assuming this huge responsibility. And the challenge of dealing with the Rohingya who've had to flee persecution and violence has been going on for decades. So Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh have been hosting refugee populations for decades. It's not a new phenomenon, but now it's at an acute phase. And the first challenge is just maintaining that level of assistance for Bangladesh. Very, very difficult. And we see the international community's interests are now moving elsewhere, big emergencies in Afghanistan, Ukraine. So that's the first thing. We have to find a way to continue to provide the support that Bangladesh needs to maintain this level of assistance to this population, knowing that there's no solution around the corner. The second thing is around the region, we have, as I describe it, quite draconian refugee policies. The very few states have signed up to the Refugee Convention, sort of internationally recognized norms for protection. So a stateless minority like the Rohingya, who have no state recognizing their right to citizenship, are even more vulnerable. And yet borders are closed to them. It's very difficult for them to seek asylum or seek protection. Hence, the largest burden remains in Bangladesh currently. And I think seeing regional countries become more accommodating, instead of securitizing their borders, looking at ways that they could accommodate more refugees to help manage this pressure at the moment would be important.
Paul said it's high time for ASEAN members to deal with the Rohingya refugee crisis before it gets worse.
ASEAN as a bloc, it has a sort of standing policy of non-interference. It sees itself and its role as not interfering in the affairs of Myanmar. However, the problem is outside of Myanmar now, and all of these regional countries will have to deal with it. It will only get worse. So there needs to be a rethink. They need to take stock. And along with the international community, we have to find a new concerted way to negotiate with Myanmar and use all channels, diplomatic, economic, etc., to try and bring them and Bangladesh to the table to find a way that this can be resolved.